we just want to take a moment to thank all our subscribers for helping us reach 50,000. We're super blown away by the support, so we can't thank you enough. Before today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest videos. Hello, and thank you for checking out today's video. Many people around the world are passionate about books. Even as we mention a love for books, thoughts of your favorite book may flash in your head. Books can also be valuable, and serious book collectors can have millions of dollars worth of books. But in reality, they are just words printed on paper, and the papers are bound together. So a book can't really be cursed, can it? According to some people, the 3 texts in this video are linked to misery, death, and even the ultimate representation of evil. Here are 3 cursed books. Number 3. Tomino's Hell. In 1917, 21-year-old graduate Yasuo Seijo found himself sitting on a bench at Tokyo University. As tears welled in his eyes, he read a telegram from Japan's military office informing him his father had been killed in action, what was then called the Great Conflict. Yasuo had been studying literature, and he wondered whether he should pack in his studies to be with his family. But it was then he realized his talent for poetry could perhaps help him work out his feelings. And in doing so, Yasuo discovered that he wasn't so much sad as he was furious. He was angry at the stupidity of war and how it ripped families apart. He reasoned that when a soldier, like his father, died, he not only faced going to hell, but his death also put his family through hell as well. Perhaps, he thought, not only metaphorically, but physically. 2 years later, all of Yasuo's lament and woe culminated in a poem called Tomino's no Zigoku. Translated to Tomino's Hell, it focuses on a child who loses his family in a tragedy. Although the tragedy is open to interpretation, some scholars believe that the Tomino of the title is a boy who murdered his parents. Though there are others who believe Tomino is a girl who experienced horrible abuses by her sister until she took revenge on her. Whatever the tragedy, Tomino soon finds himself or herself descending into Mugen Zigoku. Akin to the Buddhist of Ichi, it is the lowest level of hell, where the child is doomed to live out eternity in torment and agony. The poem begins, "The older sister vomited blood, his younger sister vomited fire, and the cute Tomino vomited glass beads." But perhaps we should have included a warning before reciting that, because in the centuries since the poem's publication, there have been whispers and rumors of a curse associated with the text when it is read out loud. The legend seems to have started when filmmaker Terayama Tsuji released a feature film adaptation of the poem, only to die suddenly at age 47. Another urban legend states that a female university student staged a public reading of Tomino's Hell, only to be killed herself shortly after. In 2004, author Yomida Inahiko incorporated the poem into his book, My Heart is Like a Stone Rolling Around. In the book, he put the following warning: "If you by chance happen to read this poem out loud, after you will suffer from a terrible fate, which cannot be escaped." Soon after, the poem went viral, with internet users posting videos of themselves reading the poem aloud, with some reporting everything from nausea and headaches to accidents and unexpected deaths. Whether these rumors are true or not is up for interpretation, but when it comes to Tomino's Hell, perhaps things are better left unsaid. Number 2. The Orphan Story. In 1610, Martin de Leon Cardenas, a priest in the Order of St. Augustine, disembarked from a galleon in a Spanish port, weary but excited. He had just made the long journey from Peru, where he'd spent months exploring and trying to convert Peruvians to the New World. As he settled back into his quarters, he grew determined to tell the world about what he'd seen during his adventures. fierce battles, native ceremonies, pirates, and even pineapples. Putting quill to pen, Father Martin combined his real-life adventures into a fictional story about a 14-year-old orphan who sets sail on a ship to South America, discovering adventure and himself along the way. It's basically a 17th century version of Forrest Gump, as the boy finds himself in the middle of a few famous events, and even crosses paths with Sir Francis Drake, a Spanish princess, and the Pope himself. The result was a 350-page historical novel called Historia del Huérfano, The Orphan Story. In 1622, proud of his work, the priest took his manuscript to a few publishers, only to have them turn him away at the door without question. It seems word was getting around that the Catholic Church in Spain wanted to put a stop to published stories about the New World. It's believed details in such stories would give Spaniards the wrong impression of their efforts to colonize South America. Martin then tried to publish his novel secretly and anonymously under the name Andres de Leon, but still found no buyers. Despite all his hard work, and despite the thrilling tales he had to tell, the priest packed up the manuscript in a chest and locked it up. And there it remained for 343 years, until 1965. In that year, a researcher at the Hispanic Society of America was going over some acquisitions and discovered the yellowed, though still intact, manuscript. Somehow, at some point, like its protagonist, the book had undertaken a perilous journey across the Atlantic from Spain to Manhattan. The book's discovery floored Antonio Rodriguez Tomino, an esteemed scholar of Spanish literature and a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. At the time, it was thought that the earliest New World novel had been published only in 1690s. But the Orphan story pushed that date back half a century. Rodriguez Menino immediately obtained the manuscript and set about editing a version for modern publication. After all, the book was a treasure trove of historical information, one he knew the world had to read to believe. The professor took a sabbatical from his university job to edit the book. 5 years later, in 1970, he took a research trip to Madrid, where he was killed in a fluke car accident at the age of 60. With no one willing to take up his mantle, the wrinkled manuscript collected dust. Until 1984, when William C. Bryan, an associate professor of Spanish at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, rediscovered the book and set about finishing Rodriguez Menino's work. Bryan said he had big plans for the text. In 1986, he told the school's alumni magazine, "Maybe Hollywood will want to do it. It would be an excellent movie. It has love, intrigue, and adventure." Sadly, he would never live to see this happen. 5 years after he started working on the book, Bryan died at his home in McAllen, Texas, the victim of a sudden and mysterious disease at the age of 52. With his death, the Orphan story went unpublished for another 2 decades. Until 2017, when Peruvian scholar Linda Palacios undertook the daunting and perhaps dangerous job of editing De Leon's manuscript. So far, however, she's been fine. When I started working on it, a lot of people told me about the curse, she told The Guardian at the time. I laughed it off, but I was a bit apprehensive at the same time. Though she did admit she told a close friend to burn the manuscript if something tragic should befall her. So what caused the seemingly innocuous adventure tale to be cursed? The answer might be found with its titular character. The Orphan story is a treacherous and dangerous journey for the protagonist. And sometimes he doesn't end up on the right side of things, a victim of all kinds of nefarious deeds. Given the book was written by a Catholic monk, perhaps the curse comes from the Almighty himself. As it is written in Exodus, "You shall not abuse any orphan. If you do, my wrath will burn, and I will kill you." The book is available now wherever you buy books, that is, if you dare to incur the wrath of God. Number 1. The Grand Grimore. If the idea of a book of dark magic so powerful that it has to be kept under lock and key sounds like something dreamed up by the writers of a Marvel movie, think again. Because the Darkhold featured in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie is based, in part, on a real book, the Grand Grimoire, otherwise known as the Red Dragon. Some scholars claim the text was written in 1522 by a man called Alabek the Egyptian, while others believe he simply transcribed and edited the contents of the book from a book that dated even further back to the 1200s. Whatever its origins, however, it is always said to have held such power that it has consistently been kept out of the public eye. In fact, it had never seen the light of day until 1750, when it was discovered inside the Tomb of Solomon in Jerusalem. Once it was unearthed, it was secreted away by the Catholic Church and now resides in a dark corner of the Vatican's private archives. Over the centuries, copies, or at least transcriptions, of the book's 4 chapters have leaked out and found their way onto the market. While the copies currently available on Amazon are said to be mere counterfeit editions of the Grand Grimoire, many believe they still hold enough source material to make them dangerous. How dangerous? Let's put it this way. Occult experts believe that the Grand Grimoire is an instruction manual on how to summon Lucifer himself. Some of his lower subordinates, like the demon Lucifer. The Grimoire reveals is the Prime Minister of Hell's treasury, and who promises infinite riches to anyone brave enough to summon him. The problem, however, is that while the book is said to contain spells and invocations that would bring these demons into our world, it contains no instructions on how to craft the spells and build the weapons that would control them, and make them yield to the invoker's every command. In one chapter, there are even instructions on how to make a pact with the devil, where he would be able to take over the invoker's body and do his dirty work in human form. But the chapter also contains instructions on how to make the pact unfair to the devil, giving the invoker not only total control of his possession, but also the ability to cast the demon back to hell at any moment. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility, and it's thought that religious leaders feared anyone who used the book to bring such hell demons to life might forget the part where you need weapons and spells to control them, thereby unwittingly setting the devil loose on an unsuspecting populace. So in a way, perhaps the Vatican hiding the Grand Grimoire is for everyone's good. It might be hard to blame them. On June 6, 2020, 2 sisters, Biba and Nicole, were enjoying a warm spring night in Friar Country Park outside of London. They were playing with glow sticks, watching the colors blur against the darkness, when 19-year-old Daniel Hussein crept up on them with a kitchen knife. He stabbed the sisters 24 times and then fled into the night. When the police eventually arrested Hussein for these brutal murders, they found a document he had written, a contract with Lucifer, in which his deal with the devil was to sacrifice 2 women in return for hell's untold riches. Before his evil crimes, Hussein even signed his contract in blood, and was said to have been waiting for the demon to close the deal, as it were. Was this tragic crime the result of a mentally ill young man, or was there something more sinister at work? Today, the publicly available version of the Grand Grimoire is used in Haitian voodoo rituals, so it may be possible that out there, somewhere, a demon is in our midst. We want to tell you about a new podcast that we're really excited about. It's called DarkTube, TV's Wicked History. The podcast is from Brian Hardigan, who wrote this video and has written several other paranormally listed videos. DarkTube delves into the scandalous, devious, and sometimes murderous past of our favorite pastime. The first season is a deep dive into the shooting death of actor John Eric Hexum. You can find DarkTube at Apple Podcasts and anywhere you find great podcasts. We'll have a link to the podcast in the description box below this video. We highly recommend you check out this awesome podcast. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.